We're in the home of Alice Harrison in Mahan, West Virginia on May the 7th. And Alice, can you tell me what position you are in the Brown family?
I'm the sixth child, the third girl between Mary Lou and Donna Jean.
Okay. Can you tell me something about growing up or some things about your parents?
Okay. Daddy and Mommy, they were real good parents. In growing up, we didn't have much money, but we had lots of love and always plenty to eat. Mom was a good old-fashioned cook, and her gravy and biscuits were just out of this world, especially when we killed hogs. And she always had a pot of beans cooked and cornbread. So many evenings when we would come in from school, we would always be hungry, and she knew that. And she always would have a one-egg cake, which she called it, made. And she made it in a big iron skillet, and we would just go in and break it off like a piece of cornbread. And that was really good. I remember Cold Spring so vividly when I was a child. We lived there in...
Okay, you need to...
I remember Cold Spring so well. I remember Cold Springs so well when I was a child. I remember when Daddy got his leg mangled so bad that it had to be amputated. And I was only 4.5 years old. And I guess the reason I remember that, it was such a shock to us. And I remember when Grandpa Miller brought the foot and he set it on Mom's sewing machine. And Daddy always had such pretty feet. And it was so sad to see his foot. And we had to... So we buried it over at Claypool Cemetery near Grandma Miller's grave. And we would always decorate it all the time. I also remember the orchards that we had up there on the flat, the pretty apples and the big gardens that we had. And I daydreamed a lot there, and we played on the cliffs and all around the spring. There was a lot of good memories there. We always had to work in the fields every summer, and I just dreaded for school to go out because we always had to hoe corn over on that hill where Nig lives. And I'd cry lots of times because I had to go. But Mom would always have us the best dinner fixed every day, and she always had fresh green beans in the summer and corn, and that's about all Mom had time to do was cook for that bunch, but it was so good. And then of course in the wintertime she always had a pot of beans cooked and always had cornbread, and it was so good. Mom could really make good bread. We had a lot of good times at the home place in Mineral City. Our Christmases were so good, and Sis played a big part in our Christmases. And I remember we had little wreaths about this big, and we would put them in all the windows. And of course, we keep them from year to year. And at that time, we didn't have too much to buy and to buy with. And the Salvation Army and the charitable organizations in Logan always gave us a lot of toys and different things, and we had real good Christmases from that. And today, I always send the Salvation Army a good gift every Christmas and in the summertime for their children at camps, because I know that that's where we received a lot of our good things for Christmas. And we really had good Christmases. And Pud and I, we always had the biggest time. One time we knew that Santa Claus had been there. And so we woke up and we went in and saw everything. Mom always put a pile for each one. You know, everybody had different things. And so we got in the chocolate covered cherries. It must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning. Are you still on? We had such big grates in all of our fireplaces in every room. And that was such a good feeling to sit around those grates and the fire. And Daddy would always bake potatoes and parch corn for us. And then every fall he would always buy 10 bushel of apples. And we kept them in the meat house. And about every night, we would go get apples, and Daddy would peel them for us. And I remember Daddy would always bounce us on his knee. And I guess it was every one of us he did that way. It was that was his way of showing his love to us. But he was real kind. I never did get many spankings from him. I always feared him too bad. And Mom, she'd pinch us. But boy, she'd really pinch, or she'd pull her hair. Mom was always kind and had a real tender heart. I remember when DeWitt and Alberta got married and had their first child, which was Priscilla. And of course that was our first grandchild. And oh, we were so tickled with her. And she was a beautiful baby. And we all helped take care of her. I guess we really aggravated DeWitt and Alberta. We were there so much. And they lived in 2 rooms in Grandpa's house. I think that's where they lived when she was born. I'm not sure. Frank, he helped us to get our first bathroom during the war. I guess that's when it was. Also, we got a stove and an electric stove and a washer. I repeat myself, didn't I? And Frank was responsible for us having the piano in our home. He saw that there was several of us that had some music ability about us, and he said every big family ought to have a piano, and so we really enjoyed that. I was real close to Frank, and when he was operated on, I always dressed his arm. And Frank was real intelligent, and you could just sit and talk to him about anything.
That's one thing.
As everyone knows, Sis was real dear to all of us. And she was just like our second mother, because Mom had so many to take care of, she couldn't pet us, and every time we got hurt, she couldn't come running to see what was wrong, so Sis was always there. And we really did love Sis. And Sis introduced me to Vernon. She came home one day and she said, Bibb, there's a nice looking young man that's working in the office where I'm working, and I want you to meet him. So this was September the 18th, 1948. And Sis gave Donna a birthday party. And so she invited Vernon. And we were in the old dining room, and I remember seeing him so plain, standing up against the wall. He had a brown suit on, the one we got married in, and he was just standing there grinning. And so we just hit it off right away. And I thought he was so good looking. And he was real quiet, but still yet there was just something about him that drew me to him. And so not long after that, a romance started. And he didn't have a car, but he always got a taxi to come and see me. And he would come and eat dinner with us on Sunday, and he didn't go to church with me then, but he would go to his church, Baptist church, and then he'd spend the day with us on Sunday. And Mom and Daddy were very fond of Vernon, and we only dated from September until January the 12th, 1949 is when we got married. And we didn't have a car, and we didn't have any money for a honeymoon. So we borrowed money from his daddy and got our furniture and furnished the little 3-room house on the bank there. And that's where we spent our honeymoon. And of course we got married there in Mom's living room, and Norman Harless married us. Just a real plain little wedding, but it was real nice. And we lived there until until he went to service in '52, and then in '54 we bought the house there where Hickey lives now, Maxine's house, and stayed there until '57. And we always had real good times at Mom and Daddy's on Christmases. And everybody knows how Sis used to plan, the fishing and all that for the gifts. And all I've got. Let's see. Let's see, I had something else here that Daddy was always responsible for us to go to Sunday school every Sunday, and we would walk to Claypool Church. Mom would stay home, and she always had dinner ready for us when we got back from Sunday school. And we always did walk. We never did get a ride. But it was, here we go, Daddy leading all of us. And I want to talk about...
Just go ahead.
I remember when Margaret was so sick with pneumonia. She was really near death. And I guess that Aunt Pearl saved her life. They had to... She stayed with her around the clock. And Margaret lost all of her hair. She had such a high fever. And she was really sick. And I believe the Lord spared her life for a special purpose. I was named for Grandma Brown. And she would always come and stay all night with us a lot. And she always wanted to sleep with me. And I guess it's because I was her namesake. But she was a dear, sweet soul. Everybody loved Grandma. And we always look forward to the Brown reunions every year. And a lot of people would come in and stay with us. And we always had such good food. Each one of them cooked. Like Aunt Lurie and Mom and Aunt Mary and Aunt Elsie. Effie would always cook up a lot of stuff. And then they would just spread it out like a big picnic, and it was always good food. We look forward to all that. We had a lot of good times. And on Saturday night before the reunions, we would always meet up at Mom's, and the kids would play in the alley, play hide and seek, and Sis always had the fishing pond and had gifts, and that was so enjoyable. And that'll always be a memory in our minds. I had 2 children. Eddie, he was born December the 30th, 1955, and we were so happy with him. And then Mary Beth was born October 21st, 59. And Vernon was so proud of his children. Eddie is, he helps to run M&H Coal Company now. And he isn't married, but he's looking. And Mary Beth is made a nurse, and she married Rick Hours, and he's in the TV business and works in a hospital and runs their TV company. He'll have to explain it. I can't. Just put that in there because I can't. And they have one child, Amy Beth, which is very dear to me, and that's the only grandchild I've had. I hope to have some more if I can get Eddie married off.
She's going to say, Pud, do you remember?
Mary Lou, do you remember when Larry was born?
Yes, I distinctly remember. June the 6th, 1942. And it was during World War II. And Daddy wanted to name him Larry MacArthur, from General MacArthur. And they didn't, we had already had the 12 children, so Daddy and Mom decided they wanted to make a baker's dozen out of it. So that's when the 13th would come along. And I can remember the night that he was born, sitting in that swing on the porch, taking care of the children, the other children. I was 17 years old, and I guess Sis was with Mommy.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I helped take care of the children, though, because we didn't want them around.
Well, who were some of the kids that Larry's own age that he played with and grew up with?
And there was Margaret and Priscilla and David, and of course Sandra. She was a lot younger than them, but it was all they lived. DeWitt lived right across the street from in the alley there, and Mig and Irene lived down in what they call the longhouse.
Well,
Let's talk about all the and it seems that Larry always had a dog.
There was always a dog there. Butch was one of them, and I remember a chow he used to have.
Yeah.
And he was, Larry wasn't considered a bully in Davin there, but nobody bothered him, because he knew that he always had Butch with him. And I can remember so well that the Nelsons, they could be up there at the blanket chip house coming. And old Butch would start barking, and somebody'd say, the Nelsons are here. Johnny and Lottie. And sure enough, they were. See, with all 12 of us, Mommy nursed us.
Yeah.
But with Larry, was the only one that had to be put on a bottle. And I can remember it so well. Larry was 3 years old when Tommy was born. And then I was teaching the next year, and Mom took care of Tommy for me. And she put both of them down. Larry had to have his bottle too. And he had a 7-Up bottle. And Tom would have a Coke bottle.
But the reason they used those soda bottles was because they would throw them out of the bed at night and break them because they were those regular or glass bottles with the big nipples. So I guess Granny couldn't afford those. But anyhow, they nursed their bottles together.
I can remember Larry's first day of school. And DeWitt and I were sitting there on the porch where the pump was. And he came in and said to Mommy, one more bottle. And Mommy gave him the bottle, he went to bed, and that was it.
He was,
Well, later in high school, Larry played football, and Daddy got to attend some of the games, which was he felt honored, I think, to do. But Larry didn't continue his football career because he got his leg broke, so he had to stop, and that finished the football career. And from I think before he finished high school, he moved to Ohio with Tots and James and lived there with them for a while. That is where he met Betty, his first wife, and they were married and went into. I think Larry went into service at that time, and. But I can remember visiting Larry and Betty with her son John when they were at the Air Force Base in Indiana. I believe it was Peru, Indiana, and Beverly was already born at that time. So Beverly was such a pretty little baby. In fact, I think somebody described her as a Shirley Temple baby. She was so pretty. And after he finished his stint in the Air Force, they came back to, they came back.
Hold on a second.
Of course, Beverly is now grown and married to Mike Woolford, and they live in Montgomery, Alabama. And Mary Lou, didn't you visit them recently in Montgomery?
And saw their family, a beautiful family. PJ, Hannah, and Lauren. Beautiful babies.
Okay.
Okay, in the early 70s, Larry married Gloria. And they stayed in Ohio for a few months, but then they later moved back to Davin and moved in with Granny and Grandpa. No, they moved in with Granny. Well, in the early 70s, Larry married Gloria, and it was shortly after that they moved back to Davin and moved in with Granny shortly after Grandpa had died. So Mom was real pleased to have them, and it was like having her baby back home. So I think she really enjoyed their being there. And Larry was born, Larry Jr. was born, and he practically grew up with Granny and loved her so dearly.
And he was a junior.
He was a Larry Jr.
He looked just like little Larry, big Larry when he was little.
And Granny enjoyed having him around so much, and he loved her so dearly, and learned to play the old piano that sat there. He was just was a natural with the piano, and Granny loved listening to him, and he played for her quite often. Of course, Gloria and Larry had two more little girls, Alyssa and Erica, and many years passed. So Alyssa is already married, living with her husband, Terry Wilt, in Orlando at this time.
And Erica is the only one left of all the grandchildren now to graduate. She'll be graduating in a couple of years.
I'm fine, how are you?
Larry and Gloria and little Larry and Erica live in Zachary, Louisiana now.